Hello fellow supermoms, Nadine here with another episode of the Special Needs Supermom Podcast. Today's subject, chronic fatigue in kids and children. The causes, the symptoms and the treatment. Chronic fatigue. Especially outsiders often think it's about kids just going to bed too late, going to bed with their cell phones, and if they just have a decent amount of hours of sleep, are not on their phone that often, exercise more, it will all go away. Unfortunately, when your kid or your teen really has chronic fatigue, it's not that simple. It's a long-term condition that is, marked by extreme fatigue, extreme tiredness that doesn't go away by going to bed earlier or taking a nap in the afternoon. Supergirl's specialist once told us, I think quite early on when we talked about her symptoms, he said, with her condition, Supergirl has juvenile arthritis. The fatigue is like having a jet lag 24/7. And no matter how much you rest, going to bed earlier, taking naps, or just, rest after an activity, it doesn't go away. And that kind of is what chronic fatigue is. And it affects school attendance, school grades. But maybe even way more important, it affects your kids' social life and therefore happiness. Because if you're too tired to go play outside, if you're too tired to go to a sleepover, if you're too tired to participate in school activities or outside, just going shopping with a friend, what is often not possible for Supergirl. Can you imagine how it is when you're a kid or a teen and everybody's having fun and parties and doing all these sports and extra activities, and you can't because just going to school is often enough. Too much, let alone all the other things. So in this episode I want to talk about what can cause chronic fatigue in children and teens, what the possible symptoms are and what the treatment is. But before I dive into it, I want to emphasize, I'm not a physician. So if after listening you suspect your kid has this, don't, just take my gospel for it. Just go see a specialist. If your specialist dismisses it with, just go to bed earlier, and you're like, no, that really is not the issue, find another specialist. Because it is a serious effect. And, I talk about possible causes and symptoms and treatment. But there is a lot out there. And the examples I give will be examples mainly from our lives. With Supergirl having juvenile arthritis, me being asthmatic and sometimes recovering from an asthma attack, and that's not really having chronic fatigue afterwards, but I get this glimpse of what she must feel like. And I'm just recovering from COVID, so this is a good reminder. And this is kind of why I thought about, I should talk about this, because it has such a huge effect on kids and teens. Not only physical, but especially mentally. So, like I said, Supergirl has juvenile arthritis, and kids with juvenile arthritis often battle chronic pain and chronic fatigue. And that happens with more children and adults that have certain autoimmune diseases. And even when the disease is in remission, or with medication under control. Worldwide studies, so not just random studies, but worldwide scientific studies show that up to, I believe, 63% of people with specific chronic diseases still have chronic pain and chronic fatigue, even when their disease is, like I said, under remission, or in remission, or even in control. So there are no flare-ups. So physically, if you do the blood work, there's or you check the body, there's no reason on the paper saying, indeed, you have an inflammation, so that's why you're more tired, or no, none of that. So even when the disease is a physical disease is under control, you can still have chronic fatigue, chronic pain. And research still doesn't know, there's still no conclusions or why that is. There are some hints and beliefs, but there's not, spoiler alert, one reason that will cause it. There's not one gene or one DNA little thingy. There's no one reason that will cause chronic fatigue. There's also, like I said, spoiler, not one treatment, unfortunately. So, what can cause a chronic fatigue? Like I said, there could be, a physical condition, a chronic illness, like an autoimmune disease, like juvenile arthritis or Crohn disease, where your body, and it makes sense, your body is constantly fighting itself, hence autoimmune disease. But it's also constantly fighting inflammation. So can you imagine how tired you are? Just, it's like your body running a marathon 24/7. It's really tiring. Then you have neurodiverse challenges. If you have ADHD or autism, there are signs that besides that you have an increased risk on depression, there are signs that because you have to translate so much in your head and the outside world, you constantly have to filter and process it. That can cause chronic fatigue as well. But besides, the physical and mental conditions that can increase a risk for chronic fatigue, it can also be caused by having too much pressure and too much extracurricular activities. So basically, you as a kid are just not allowed to be a kid and have downtime and be bored out of your mind, because you constantly have to compete for the highest grades. You're constantly pressured into, you only count if you have straight A's. You have to start building up your extracurricular activities in preschool already, because that's the only chance that one day you will be accepted, blah 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 blah. But what's wrong with sometimes just being a child? Or the pressure you must feel if like I mentioned in the previous podcast, your kid is a grade C kid. If you can't get there, and the only thing you hear constantly that you have, and you should do better and learn more, study more. So too much pressure, too much out of school activities can actually cause a chronic fatigue as well. And sometimes there really is no cause. There is the chronic fatigue syndrome, and you get that diagnosis, really they ruled out all the other stuff. That they know there's no depression going on. They know there's no autoimmune disease. They know they ruled all the other stuff out. So what are symptoms? How does it look like in daily life? Well, for Supergirl, for instance, she just finished high school. Yay! We heard she passed her state exams for that. Supergirl, I think since 4th grade in elementary school, hasn't been able to go to school full time. So at the worst moment, I think she skipped at least a third of her classes, if not more. But that was when, the inflammation was really bad as well. But even if their inflammation is in check, most of the time she's not able to go to school full time. She just needs to rest more. And you see it with her. The idea alone of going to the city to go shopping for clothes with her friends is tiring. So she rather not. Busy activities where there are a lot of people, she will avoid because it's only more tiring. And other general symptoms that can be a reason that you should look out is that if your kid or your teen is always tired, even when they go to bed early and take extra naps, dizziness, brain fog, and loss of concentration and actually memory. Because, for instance, what I know about juvenile arthritis is because their body is constantly fighting. And there are a lot of meds she's taking to keep her disease under control. So it's also the meds that can cause tiredness. But because you're so tired, it's way harder to focus in class. It's way harder to digest all the information and store it. Then you have sleep problems. How weird does that sound, right? So you have chronic fatigue, and you think, just go to bed earlier. But a lot of people with chronic fatigue actually have sleep problems. They have a hard time falling asleep. They wake up earlier and more times at night. They have less of a good quality sleep. It also increases. It can increase after, physical and mental activities. So after school, kids with chronic fatigue often are dead tired, or after a physical activity. And physical activity can be go shopping with your friends. They need to rest afterwards. You can be way more sensitive to noises, to crowds, because there's always so much to handle. And because your brain is so tired, it can't filter all that stuff and digest it properly. And it can even cause physical or increase physical pain, like headaches and painful joints and even sore throats, I read somewhere. So that's a lot. And then you're not even an adult. You're supposed to be carefree, enjoying the world. And nobody understands why you're tired. The only comment you get from teachers and family members is that you have to go to bed earlier. Well, that really is not the problem. Treatment options for chronic fatigue. Well, unfortunately, there is no cure yet. There are different ways you can treat chronic fatigue to kind of improve quality of life. But unfortunately, to this day, there is no scientific, one easy, quick fix cure. So, if you suspect your kid or your teen deals with chronic fatigue, or maybe yourself, normally if you go to a physician, they will first rule out if you don't have another physical or mental condition that can also either have the same symptoms or can be a side effect of your disease, like with juvenile arthritis. They will do lab tests. They will make sure you don't have just, not that that's easy, but just a sleeping disorder, but also depression or anxiety, because depression and anxiety, the symptoms can be the same as when you have chronic fatigue. So when they ruled out any other stuff, or they know it makes sense that you have chronic fatigue because you also have a certain chronic illness, or you have ADHD or autism, and not I've got ADHD, my son autism and ADHD. He doesn't have chronic fatigue. He can be tired after something, but that's something different than the chronic fatigue Supergirl is dealing with. So, if your physician can establish, yes, indeed, chronic fatigue, yeah, there's no pill. Well, take this pill once a day and yay! Like I said, they're doing a lot of research worldwide, and Supergirl actually participated in an academic study, and it took more than a year and a half, almost 2 years. And it started with, she had to keep a diary, just so they could see, what her lifestyle was, and how she felt after sleep and after an activity. And based on all that information, she first got, I think it was a 3 or 6 month lifestyle plan. And they first asked, so what's your goal? What would you like to achieve? And for her, that was being able to cycle to school again. In the Netherlands, most kids cycle to school and to your work, and it's 6 miles. We don't have school buses in the Netherlands, so she cycles to school. Well, she did. She could hardly, and she had an electric bike, so a bike with like a little motor to support her. But even that, when her disease was really bad, she just couldn't. She also didn't have the energy for it, but she would love to, because it's also where the social stuff is going on with your friends, on the way to school and back from school. So that was her goal. And they said, well, she hadn't cycled at that moment of time for 6, I think maybe even 9 months. Was in a wheelchair all the time. So they checked that, and the first goal was, okay, cycle once a week. Doesn't have to be, to the end of the world, but just cycle once a week. Period. And the other one was that they found out that, if she slept longer than 8 hours, it did improve her quality of day the following day. So she started on melatonin to help her fall asleep easier and to have a better sleep. So less waking up during the night and stuff like that. And that really helped. She was resisting an extra drug, but in the end, the quality she got out of it. Not that the chronic fatigue disappeared, but her mornings were a bit better. And it's not always, like that, but it improved significantly. And the other thing they did was they looked at her diet. And no, it doesn't have to be that you only have to, eat like a rabbit, like we call it in the Netherlands. But she had to drink more water, eat a little bit less junk food. Now we don't eat that much junk food here in the Netherlands. Normally, fries or chips, depending on where you are in the world. We eat that once a week, most of the time in the weekend. But I'll be the first to admit that if I'm really tired, I easily have a pizza night as well. But they said, you should increase the veggies. That was no issue for her. But also increase eating more nuts and eating more, what was it? Yeah, eating more fish, eating more veggies, a little bit less carbs. But for teen, this was really hard. The other lifestyle changes, that was easy for her to do. Not eating pizza as a teenager. So I have to admit she didn't really do well on that part. But I heard from people that they really felt better when they increased their veggie intake and lowered the amount of snacks they ate. And it makes sense, there is a known thing called if after you ate a lot of sugars, a lot of sweets, that you get this, I would say, carb coma afterwards. And it makes sense that, if you eat a lot of refined stuff, that really doesn't have any nutritional benefit, that it makes you more tired. If you have a big meal after Thanksgiving, you're really tired as well. So imagine if you eat crap all the time, and a lot all the time, you will have less energy. But it's not a cure. So for Supergirl, the melatonin made a difference. But we also leverage, is that the right word? Leverage the activities. So we don't go shopping and go to the cinema at the same day, or to a party at the same day. That's too much. The same with school. We actually, Supergirl doesn't go to school full time since, I think, 4th or 5th grade. And in the Netherlands, in high school, we have different levels. So she's also in a lower level of high school. Well, she just graduated, thank God. But because of that, she is able to skip classes. I think she would go to school, I think either between 2/3 and 3/4 of the time. So she does miss quite some school, but she needs that. And you could argue, just then skip on the activities outside of school. But your kid is also a kid. You remember high school? It sucked, moms. You don't get energy of math or biology. And you might find it interesting, but getting energy, that school takes a lot of energy. Even when you have like dyslexia, for instance, or autism, but also with a chronic disease. Because you have to, it's a constant social battle. You have to learn stuff you really don't care much about. It's important, I get it. But, so it costs a lot of energy. Now, throw in an extra disease here and there, yay. But if you only focus on the academics and don't let your kids have fun and be a kid, because before you know, they're an adult and you have all the responsibilities. The mortgage, the 9-to-5 job, healthcare, blah, blah. A kid should be able to be a kid as well. So I dare say that fun activities outside of school are just as important as school itself. Because, if it might cost you a lot of energy to, swim or go to soccer practice, but it also, if that's your kid's thing and it really makes them happy, yes, it costs energy, but it also gives energy, and it provides that dopamine, that happiness thingy in your body. And because of that, you can actually handle stuff more. And if you would only focus on getting high grades, only school is important. Your kid should be a kid as well. So having energy to do stuff outside school is just as important. And therapy can really help. It really helped. Supergirl is now as her second therapist. And the first was, an animal therapist. So, because animals really are Supergirl's thing. She went to a green high school. She actually is going to study animal care in college. So that's her thing. Costs a lot of energy, but it's her thing. So it also gives energy. And she now has a therapist that also has, I don't know if I pronounce this correctly, fibromyalgia. Yeah. It's also in the rheumatoid arthritis family. So her therapist knows what it is to have chronic pain and chronic fatigue. So for Supergirl, it's also really interesting to see how she does it, how she leverages things, how she, makes sure there's balance in life, and what she does on crappy days, and things like that. So that really helped her. So to round it up, chronic fatigue is a real thing, especially if there's already an underlying illness or a neurodiverse challenge, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, because those things cost a lot of energy. There is a chance you will have chronic fatigue, and if you go to the physician, make sure the physician takes this serious, because that is a real thing. In the rheumatoid arthritis world, the chronic fatigue and the chronic pain is a known factor of patients. So, but they will rule out, if there are not other physical or mental conditions going on, because depression and anxiety, can have the same symptoms as chronic fatigue. If there's not an autoimmune disease or anything going on yet, they might want to rule that out as well. They probably want to rule out just don't take this lightly, but just a sleeping disorder. And if they, checked all that and you get you've got chronic fatigue. That's a stupid way of saying it, but it's established you've got chronic fatigue. Symptoms are, rest doesn't improve. You're always tired, going to bed early, extra naps don't help. That's a sign. Dizziness is a sign. Brain fog, and with that, loss of concentration and memory is a sign. Sleep problems, funny enough, is a sign. But also sensitivity to noise and crowds, and an increase of the fatigue after an activity, even a fun activity. And it can even cause physical pain, headaches and joint pain, muscle pain. Treatment, unfortunately, there is no scientifically proven cure for chronic fatigue. Can it change? If you have it now, does it mean you will have it forever? No. But there's no, this is a pill, just take this once a day, you're cured. Unfortunately, no. But there are things you can do about it that can help your kids, your teen, deal with it. From changes in lifestyle, and maybe a healthier diet, to leverage school activities and just out of school activities, but also find you're happy, because if you're if you know what makes you happy, yes, it will cost you energy, but it also makes you happy, and in that way you're able to deal with stuff way better. If you're also allowed to do fun stuff, So I hope this helped you and it was informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. In the comments of the podcast, you can also find Special Needs Supermom Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. So you can shoot me a DM there as well. If you are Special Needs Supermom, know there is a private Facebook group just for Special Needs Supermoms, like you, like me, and it's private to make sure it's because really you need to be able to be a special needs supermom to understand some stuff and to deal with some stuff, and that's why I keep it private. But if you go to Facebook and search for Special Needs Supermoms, you can find this group, and there are some intake questions just to make sure only supermoms are in this group. Feel free to join. You can share your story, cry, laugh, ask for advice on any kind of subject, and feel free to join. If you find this a really valuable resource, this podcast, please do me a favor and rate it, because it really helps, other moms to find this podcast as well. And it would make me really happy and proud. So thanks a million if you would just rate and review it, and feel free to share it if you find that this is a useful tool for a fellow supermom you might know. Having said that, I hope you have a great week ahead, and yes, take it easy, really listen to your child, take it serious, and don't forget to relax and unwind yourself. Take care, Supermom. Bye.